America prints money. Every country does. So why is it that when America has a financial crisis, the entire world feels it? Why do countries on the other side of the planet care so much about the US dollar? And how did a single currency become so powerful that global trade, oil, debt, and even wars are connected to it? Because the truth is, the dollar isn't just America's currency anymore. In many ways, it became the world's currency. After World War II, the United States came out stronger than almost every other major world power. Europe was devastated, Japan was destroyed, much of the world was rebuilding. But America had factories, gold, military power, and the strongest economy on earth. At that time, countries needed stability, so world leaders gathered in 1944 for something called the Bretton Woods Agreement. And this meeting would quietly shape the modern world. The system they created was simple. The US dollar would become the center of global finance, and the dollar itself would be backed by gold. And because the US economy was so dominant, the world accepted it. But eventually, something changed. America started printing far more money than it actually had gold for, especially during the Vietnam War. Massive government spending and economic expansion, and by 1971, President Nixon made a shocking announcement. The United States would no longer allow dollars to be exchanged for gold. In theory, this should have destroyed trust in the dollar, but it didn't. Actually, the dollar became even more powerful afterwards. Why? Because America had something else now: oil. In the 1970s, the United States made agreements with major oil-producing countries, especially Saudi Arabia. The deal was extremely important. Oil would be sold globally in US dollar. This meant something huge. If a country wanted oil, it needed dollars first. And since every modern economy depends on oil, suddenly every country needed dollars. Not just America's allies, almost everyone. And this created massive global demand for currency. Think about how powerful that is. America could print dollars, while the rest of the world constantly needed them. That gave the United States enormous influence over trade, banking, sanctions, and global finances. But there is another question. Why doesn't the world simply switch to another currency? Why not the euro, or China's currency, or something completely new? Because global trust is difficult to replace. The dollar dominates because investors trust American market, the US economy protects global trade route, and America still has one of the largest economies in the world. Even countries that politically oppose the United States still use the dollar heavily. That's how deeply embedded it became. This also explains why American sanctions are so powerful, because many global transactions move through American banks, American financial systems, or the dollar itself. So when the US cuts a country off financially, it can severely damage that country's economy. In some ways, financial power became just as important as military power, maybe even more. But recently, something interesting has started happening. Countries like China, Russia, and others have been trying to reduce dependence on the dollar. Some are trading in other currencies, some are buying gold, some are building alternative financial systems. Why? Because depending too heavily on one country's currency also creates vulnerability, especially when politics and sanctions become involved. But replacing the dollar is much harder than people think, because dominance isn't just about money. It's about trust, military power, global influence, economic stability, and decades of infrastructure. The US dollar didn't become dominant by accident. It emerged from war, economic power, oil, global trust, and America's position after World War II. And even today, whether people support America or oppose it, much of the modern world still revolves around the dollar. Not because countries were forced to love it, but because the entire global system slowly became built around it. And that may be one of the most powerful forms of influence any nation has ever had.